need to, just pull us in here. When we're talking about Julius Caesar is appointed the head of Spain by the Senate in 68 BC. Okay, so this is before Rome conquers Egypt and conquers the Greeks. Okay, so I just want to back up. Rome is starting to flex their might, you know, just about 100 years before this. Like I say, they were no rival for Alexandria. But once the Alexandrian Empire was broken up, I explained that now Rome could grow and gain power, and their Senate is, But now when we look, Caesar is elected to the council in 59 BCE. Caesar conquers the Gauls. That's what's in France. So what will become the French. In 57 BCE. So this is before they're still dealing with the Greeks and Rome. They're and as they conquer these people, they annex their army to theirs. And I need to let you know, the Roman army until the latter part never entered Rome. The Roman army was a hodgepodge of various people that they conquered. The Roman army was not Romans. Are you clear? In fact, the army wasn't even allowed to come into Rome. Their job was just to conquer and bring the booty to Rome.
So who was in Egypt? Was the Roman army in Egypt? How
The
did they
Roman army, after they conquered in 30 BCE, part of the Roman army stayed in Egypt, and they appointed a Roman general there, or like a governor from the Roman, that the Senate appointed. Just like I said, they appointed Caesar to be like the governor of Spain, of the area that would be Spain, and then they had a governor of the Gauls, and then but then later they would go in. Like I said, 57 they conquered the Gauls. That would be French. The Gauls took a whole lot of spankings. Everybody who came to power, beat the Gauls.
Just for clarification, let's get a look at who these people are that we're calling the Romans. What are their territories? Where are they coming from?
They are groups of people.
And who would they be?
I should have a map here to really. I took my map. It's in Harlem.
Okay.
I had the big Kemetic map. You got it on hold?
Sure.
Okay.
Now hold that book up a minute. Let me see what you're going to. Great events of Bible time. Okay. Good. Let's go.
This is going to give us a good idea. Okay. This will give us a little bit more background of what I'm talking about. When Alexander, son of Philip of Macedonia, conquered and created the greatest empire here in Western world, we'll look. You see the Black Sea below this, and you see Macedonia.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. So you have Macedonia. So you notice you don't see Greece there. You see Macedonia, because that's where Alexander was from. Okay. I know we notice him as a great Greek. Okay, but that's where he's from. He conquers all the way across here. Asia Minor is called, right? That's where Iona and stuff like that. And today, this area up here will be called Turkey.
Okay.
So you're getting a little, okay. So Turkey is the doorway into Asia. So this side, part of Turkey is in Europe. The other part of Turkey is in Asia. Okay. So Alexander will conquer all of this this peninsula, which is Macedonia and Greece, move across into Asia Minor, conquer all of that, Cyprus, Crete, the islands there, move into this area here along the Euphrates River, move in, conquer Babylonia, Syria, and move all the way to the borders of India.
Now, but in those days, Turkey was still a part of the African continent.
No, not at that time.
Oh, not at that time.
Because you had the great Hittites, are probably the first known European nation to have any power. And the Hittites would be where Asia Minor is and where Turkey is today. So and the Hittites were not Africans.
Okay, let that part of the book down. Okay, now I can see it very well.
Okay, so this is what Alexander conquered, all of this area here. And then he was to come into Kemet. Okay, but you see, it doesn't go very far. He comes into Kemet, he goes out to Siwa. This is out in the desert here. This is an oasis out here. And then he comes back in this here to Memphis. So he doesn't go in the southern, if you see here, the southern part, which is Upper Kemet. He leaves that part alone. And then here's the coin, king of Alexander. This coin of Alexander, that's the horns of Amun. When they made this coin, he considered himself the son of Amun. Amun-Ra in ancient Kemet. You see that? Can you see the ram head here? Okay. So now, this is not seen pretty good, but after Alexander dies, I talk about the three areas where his empire was broken up. You had the Ptolemy kingdom, which was northern Africa, Egypt. Then you had the Babylonian here, this area. And then you had the area over here, Macedonian area. So kept and you notice they call it the Hellenic age, okay, Hellenic or Hellenism. Anyhow, persecution of the Jews. So that's what we were just talking about that, okay. And then it talks about their gods at that time, Zeus, Apollo, and Athena, Athena, and those were the Greek gods. And the Romans are going to just tap it right on top of that. This just shows the Hellenic Wars, but I wanted to show you a map of when Rome finally comes into the picture. Here we can see the first beginning writings, books of Christianity, and so the first books that are to be brought into Greece to be shown are books dealing with the religion of the Coptics.
The Africans.
Yes. So that's their introduction to literacy, you know. Other than that, only the Senate could read, you know, and things of that nature. Okay, I wanted to... Okay, now, the Romans come into the picture, and that the Romans at their height, look at here, see? So they engulf all that was the Greeks.
But where are they coming from? Who are the Romans? I mean, not just that little piece.
Okay,
right
so
there, but
right.
Who are their ancestors? Where are they coming down from?
Okay, first of all, I mentioned it before. Rome is a colony of Greece. When you have a colony of somebody, it's the people who come from there go there to colonize. Okay, who were the original colonists in America?
The Native Americans.
No, colonists.
Oh, they were the English.
Okay, so the original colonists of Rome are the what? Greek and
Greeks.
Macedonians.
Yes.
I need to be clear.
Right. Okay.
Because I even told you at one time the Italians weren't even part of the Roman Empire.
Right.
Okay, they had to do civil war and petition to become part of Rome. Okay, so so that's later. So at the early stage. So now the Roman Empire is a conglomeration of all these people they conquered. So let me say this: the Roman Empire had Phoenicians, they had Syrians, they had Greeks, they had Macedonians, They had Gauls. They had Spaniards. They were all part of the Roman army, and even had certain divisions that might be dominant that part. And then it would be led by a Roman general from the Senate. But the Roman army was a hodgepodge of people from northern Africa. Look at here. They got many of their army from northern Africa, all this area here. They took many of their, soldiers and generals from Egypt and Crete and all of these places here. So the Roman Empire consists not of just Italians or people here. They consist of people they conquered from all of these areas.
And many of them were Africans?
Well, not the largest percentage, but yes. I mean, you probably dealing with maybe 10, 12, 12% of American population is Africans? Mm-hmm. The Romans were dealing with about that too.
Okay.
About 12%, just like we have in the American population. Now, when 12% of us are of the population, but look at us military. Is it just 12%? No. We're a much larger percent in terms of military. So that's the way it was in Rome. Mm-hmm. I need to be, so are you clear? I know the movies never depict, Africans, but there were many Africans, there.
Were Africans pretty much integrated in Roman affairs throughout?
There were Africans in the elite society. There were many Africans were depicted in their colonized section that enslaved. Rome, like Greece, had a large slave population. Many of the people, in fact, they had a problem when it came to taxation, because they had more slaves in the city than they had regular citizens. So they just had to start taxing everybody. Yeah, the Romans had a large. I'm going to talk about those populations too. I mean, you had times where there were 1 million people in Rome, and then you had times when Rome fell out of grace where you might have 1,000 people. So Rome depends on how they were winning and who defeated them, on who was in charge.
But in North Africa, you still had the Egyptians, black folk.
Yes. See, let me just take this here. All right. So in North Africa, and I showed you that picture here. Okay. So you have a clear picture here. So Rome had these delegates. Most of these people were black coming to Rome. Okay. Even during the time of the Nicene Conference. Nicene Conference is around 315, 325 AD,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, that was the third.
That was the third, yeah. I think 319 or something like that was the first Nicene Conference. Okay, so in 319, and in the 320, the Nicene Conference in Nice, a large percentage, almost the majority of most of the priests of the Coptic Church are all Africans. So now the problem they're having is that, by this time, they've already stopped the persecution. Okay, let me just say this here, around 100 to 200, you got great slaughters. I want to go back and give you some exact times here of the Christians. At one time, they just went in and killed every Christian they saw. So the Romans had no tolerance for religion whatsoever. Christianity, Judaism, anything. Religion, they just didn't have any of this Christian stuff.
And at that time, the Christians were primarily Africans?
Yes. 36, Octavius defeats, Octavius returns to Rome. He's supposed to be born in Palestine at 6 BCE. In the year so-called 1 in AD, Roma, which is the capital in Rome, has approximately 1 million people lives there now. So I'm trying to give you just how big, The Forum of Augustus is inaugurated in 2 A.D. Roman acknowledged Cymbeline as the king in Britain in 5 A.D. So this is the first time they acknowledge a king in Britain in 5 A.D. So before that, it just savages. But the person they put in is kind of like a figurehead. Augustus expanded borders to the Balkans. Gothic warlords. Okay, no. By 14 AD. Okay, so just to give you an idea. In 1 AD, I said there was how many Romans?
Million.
1 million. In 14 AD, that's 14 years. There's now 5 million people who live in the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. So as they conquered, they just brought those people into their empire. Mm-hmm. Okay, and expanded that way. So I'm just trying to give you an idea that Rome didn't, when you say a Roman, it wasn't an ethnic group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And most people think so. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an ethnic group. An ethnic group was at the Senate and in the royal family. Claudius, who was the emperor, invades Britain in 43 A.D. Romans found the city that we call London today was Londinium in Britain, and that was founded by the Romans. They needed a place to control their political seat as they puppet those people. So, you know, a lot of people finally in 68 A.D., the Gauls and Spain rebel against Nero. You know, Nero was the Roman emperor, and try to claim their independence.
What year is this? That
was the year 69 A.D. in the Common Era, CE. Titus destroys Jerusalem and the Jews spread. Now this is a great murdering. This is in 70 A.D. Mm-hmm. In 70 A.D., Titus, who was a Roman general emperor, destroys Jerusalem and Jews. The Jews have to spread to Armenia. Now this is how the Jews get dispersed. Now this is a real important thing. After they're destroyed, after Jerusalem is sacked, and they kill every Jew they can find, the Jews spread to Armenia, Iraq, Iran, Arabia, Egypt, Italy, and Spain, and Greece. So they no longer have a homeland that they're now into. So that's how they get to all those different places. And but that's in 70 A.D.
The Jews then are not Africans, are they?
These Jews at this time, at 70 A.D., is still predominantly African. Oh. But let me explain. There's a great mixture here. Okay? Many of them are mulattoes. They're the children of, of mixtures. Because after, it's probably, these Jews maybe close to 40% African at this point. Okay. See, one of the things that people understand, when the Romans sacked and they took their wealth, many of the people who later, or the Europeans who become Jews, are Romans. Romans and Greeks become Jews. First they killed them and everything, and then they inherited their estates, and then later they just took over the religion. And people don't realize that. Mm. So later, the largest number of Jews become Greeks and Romans who convert to Judaism. And then the last wave, are the Europeans, from above Turkey in that area here, where you have the, Khazars, Russia, and all that. So these Jews you see in New York, they're descendants of those European Jews. They don't have nothing to do. They don't have nothing to do with these people. They ain't even connected to these Jews. They just converted to the religion out of convenience, because the Muslims and the Christians were at war, and so they had to take a side. So since the Muslims and the Christians were at war, they decided to be Jews. And they became the traitors and sold to both sides. That's how the Khazars and them, and that's where the word Jew actually comes into existence, because there is no J in the alphabet during this time period. So there is no word called Jews. They talk about the Great Massacre. There's a couple of great massacres that just before, and this all happened before the Council of Nice. It is. Before, I had told you Romans had been putting foot up the behind of the Ghouls, the Germanic tribes, and all of them were here. In 167 CE, Common Era, the Roman Empire is attacked for the first time by barbarians, the German Gudi and Marcomanni tribes. I mean, they're not defeated, but they're attacked for the first time, because other than that, they were never strong enough. The Germans would just come there and put foot up there behind. So this is the first. I mean, the Greeks, Romans would just go there and put foot up there behind, and this is the first time that they're starting to come into play. In 203 Common Era, so this is 100 years before Nice, right? Christians are massacred in Carthage, so that's in northern Africa. The Romans go there and massacre literally every Christian in the city. Carthage becomes a Coptic city, Christian city. 15.
You said 215?
Yeah, 215 in the Common Era, AD. There's a massacre of the Christians, the Coptans, in Alexandria. That's in Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt. Have the Coptics are going to retreat. That's why the largest Coptic nation became Ethiopia, because they were persecuted in Egypt, because the Romans were controlling Egypt, so they had to move down to Ethiopia where they had protection. And so the largest Coptic church and the largest group of Coptics up into the modern world was in Ethiopia.
Is that when they built the rock-hewn churches? Because they are clearly Christian.
Right, yes. Yes. So that's when this era now of the Coptics are happening.
Okay.
All right, so you have to understand. And so they are moving in. So you see the Tekkens, all the things you saw in Egypt, now you'll see there, but with a Christian facade. Okay? And so the Coptics are Christians, at this point. So this is all after Serapis is created. That's the creation of the Coptics, so that we're clear, which was Greek. But I wanted to show you when the Romans embraced Christianity. They're killing everybody at this point, all the Christians. Imperators ordered the first empire-wide persecution. Emperor Decius ordered the first empire-wide persecution of Christians that also kills the Bishop of Roma. And this is in 250 CE. So in 250 CE, what had happened, the persecution of the Christians were not necessarily the whole empire. It would be just a decree, like they just got on some nerves, okay, just go kill some Christians, But by 250, the tolerance of Christians had just, no. The whole empire was at war with anybody who was Christian by 250. And so even the Christians there were some Christians in Rome at that point, in Roma, they killed all of them. as I'm looking for this, is there anything else you wanted me to touch? CE in the
About
common
300.
right. The population of the Roman Empire is 60 million, and 15 million are Christians. So I'm putting some perspective here. This is 300. So this is why you're going to have a Nicene conference now. Pretty soon, you see now, because now, even among the Roman people, or the people that's in the under the territory of Rome, are being converted to Christianity, because they see how these Africans are living. They see how these Africans are the purest of the people, or who have the most values, and the idea of the Romans with their foot down everybody's behind becomes repressive and backwards, and so as the Christians are being killed, they're getting more converts. Okay, all right. So I'm just saying, so that's 300. So you're getting an idea of what's going on. 303. Now this is a big date. This is what I was looking for. In 303, in the Common Era, Diocletian and Maximilian ordered a general persecution of all Christians, including the destruction of all churches. 1,500 Christians will be killed in 8 years. That's from 303 to in 8 years. So that would be like 311. So between 303 and 311, over 1,500 Christians were killed, and all the churches were ordered to be destroyed. This is in the within the Roman Empire now. Now, Galerius or Galerius moves into power around 308 in the Roman Empire, and he relaxes the ban on Christianity. So in 311, so remember I told you from 303 to 311, over 1,500 Christians are murdered in all their churches. And Galerius relaxes the ban on Christianity, and that's in 311. Mm-hmm. So up to 311, boy, if you were Christian, you were in hiding. Okay? Black or white, no matter what. If you were hiding out, or if you wasn't walking around with no cross on your chest or nothing like that there. Okay. Then in 311, Galerius dies, and Constantine fights for the throne. Okay. So you're getting the time period, because they had the Nicene Conference during Constantine's time. Okay. Yeah. So now you see. So 311. Constantine is an emperor, but he's fighting for the throne. Okay, because there's a gap now. Constantine's defeat Maxentius and becomes emperor of the West and disbands the territory of the Guard. Constantine in 313 then destroys that part and becomes emperor of the East. So Constantine first he's the West, and then he kills all those folks in charge as he gets stuff together, and then becomes emperor of the East and the West. Constantine, and then in 313, Constantine ends the persecution of the Christians. Mm-hmm. So up into Constantine, so Rome and Christians was like oil and water from 30 BCE, when Rome conquered Egypt, right? Up until 313. So that's 300 years, because when Rome conquers Greece, that Serapis has already been developed by the Greeks. So, okay, all right. So the Romans are intolerable from the very beginning all the way to 313. 313 in the 6th. So that's like 300 years of their foot up anybody's butt who's in any religion, whether it's Judaism or Christianity.
So what is the culture? How are they?
Religion.
They don't tolerate religion.
Right. So it's whether you were Jew or Christian, and there ain't no Muslims at this time.
Okay. So how is daily life? What's going on? What's the economy? What's there is no religion, so what's the economy like? What's the life like? What's happening?
All right, put it back on.
Okay, it's on.
All right. Let me explain. As a professor at one of the colleges in New Jersey, I'm sitting in the teacher's lounge, and two European professors are having a conversation. And one of the European professors looks over at the other one and said, life's a bitch and then you die. And the other one said, you got that right. That was the way the outlook was in ancient Rome. You born, you pay taxes, and you die. And there's no remorse in between. That was the average life. If you were lucky, you didn't get enslaved.
So what were people doing? I mean,
you worked.
Primarily farmers.
You worked from sun up to sundown. And you were in a trade. So if you weren't in the military, and you weren't a farmer, you were a craftsman. Or you were somebody who was in the market trying to sell. Again, most people were enslaved. If you were regular citizens were enslaved. Only the rich were citizens of Rome. The aristocrat. There wasn't a real large common population until later. Even during this time, the regular common population is those people I call Italians, no, they weren't even really considered citizens. So you got the aristocratic class, and you got a slave class, a military, and then crafts, and your people who are working in the fields of feeding Rome. Rome was like a giant elephant that needed to be fed constantly. And so you needed these workers. You needed a large work crew of slaves working, bringing stuff back into the capital. And you're not paying nobody. So you can see how you can acquire wealth. You go, you kill nations, you take all their stuff, you annex the people, and you bring it back to Rome. Rome is inheriting the wealth from Persia, Syria, Turkey, the Hittites, all of these places. The Gauls, the France, Spain, they can't keep nothing because the Romans are taking all of that. And anytime they find out that somebody got something, that's where the Roman Empire is going. You understand? The Roman army's job was to bring booty into Rome. The Roman soldiers themselves weren't allowed to be in Rome. They weren't Roman citizens.
Okay.
It would be just like having a total mercenary army that's feeding the mother. In this case, Rome.
Okay. So there is no scientific development. There's no contribution to civilization to make life more humane, more. That's what I was trying to get at. But you explaining it.
Yeah.
Marvelous job.
No. You worked and you died. And the only educational thing would be the aristocratic family, right, who were still attached to the Moors or they're still attached to the Africans, right? And remember now, there's this growing group of Christians because now they're attached to the Coptics, who are an educated group of people. So the masses of these Europeans are ignorant. They're coming in contact with the Coptics who are reading from their books, their holy books. They're reading from their scrolls. But they're reading in Coptic. And they're reading in Latin. More African people use Latin than any other group of people on the planet. Most people don't realize that.
Now, in Egypt, what is happening with the Egyptians, and are they moving south and getting the hell out from around?
That's exactly what's happening.
Explain that.
You have great migration. So the people who are in Somalia today, they have migrated from Egypt. The people who are in southern Sudan, you'll notice, for example, if you're in Sudan, just regular Sudan, you see a different look than you look when you go down to Somalia, and even parts of northern Kenya and things like that. There, those are people who had to hat up and just get right on out of Egypt. So they moved back. So the people in Somalia, ancient Punt will tell you that they were the parents of Egypt, and then when the Egypt was sacked, they came back to Punt. And that's Somalia and all that area in there. Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, all of those areas. Those people migrated from Egypt, So that's why you have the largest Coptic Christians are Ethiopia. They were all Coptics. These were people who migrated back out of Egypt and mixed with their brothers. They already had family in Egypt, Sudan, Somalia, all of that. So they just moved back where it was comfortable. Many of them did not migrate west until the Muslims come.
Okay.
So you don't have a western migration. You have to understand, most Africans are not, we're not forest people. We're not from the tropical rainforest. We're savanna people. The great savannas. We come from the great savannas. And then only in the less than 1,000 years have we migrated and populated Western Africa into the tropical rainforest.
But Ghana was a BC beginning.
But look where Ghana was. Ancient Ghana in the BC wasn't at the coast of Western Africa.
Yes.
Ancient Ghana is like where Mali and Chad is in there. So it was right next to Eastern Africa, where the people had migrated there. So that's where Ghana was. And then Ghana kind of moved into the area kind of like where Mali was. And then when you had the Mali Empire, they moved further west towards the coast. And then the Songhai Empire is the one that engulfed almost all where you see West Africa today. So you have Ghana, Mali, Songhai. Each one moved further west.
Right.
So I need you to clearly understand that,
So now comes the Arabs.
Right, that Arabs will come.
Well, first,
Arabs don't come into the.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Wait, we're at 313, right?
Yeah, let's
where
deal
Constantine
with the
comes
fall of
Rome.
Rome.
Right.
And then the Arabs come in.
Right, then the Arabs. All right, so we're not far away. We're at 313. So at 313, Constantine has made a power play, then wiped out everybody, and now he's in charge of Rome. He expels the ban on Christianity.
Yeah.
So now you can be a Christian openly. Christians are coming out of hiding now. This actually, what? It increases Constantine's power. So now he's going to use this to his advantage. So now he has the regular people and he has the army on his side. He's defeated the West, so he has the army of the east and west of Rome, okay? He brings in some of the army that's out in Babylonia, Syria, and Persia and brings them back in. Now the Christians are not fleeing, so now they think he's a good guy. So this is where we are now. Constantine, he is the one who founds the city of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire. Okay, right. So Constantine founds the city. He needs a new, fresh start now. There's some bad taste in his mouth of what Romans have done, to Christians and everybody up until this point. So now he founds his new capital, okay? And this is going to be a new seat of power. It becomes the capital of the Roman Empire under Constantine, okay? And he has the Nicene Conference, so there's several of them, 319, 22, 25. And this is where they're going to say, okay, listen, if we can't beat them, let's join them.
Right.
But we can't have this African version. We need our version of Christianity. And so in 319, they invite all the Coptics, all the Christians together. And they said, listen, we have to come up with one doctrine. We can't have all these different facets. North Africa, we got one form of Coptic Christians. in Asia Minor, we got another form of Christians. And now here in Rome, we got another form of Christians. We need one belief. And so Constantine put his boys to the test, and they rewrote what the Coptics had already had as a doctrine. And at that point, they tried to say that Jesus is the Son of God and that he is not born of man. Well, to the Coptics, that was silly. We've been teaching this for 300 years. No, that this character who we've made as Jesus was just another brother who was a great prophet. And they didn't want to hear that. We got to deify him. We got to make him the son. So they had a vote. All those who believe that Jesus is the Son of God, not born of man, from immaculate conception, and all that, raise your hand. All those who don't, give me nay. So Constantine had his army there, and all those who said no, we don't believe that, Constantine had them murdered right there on the spot. They have witnesses of the first conference. They actually cut their heads open of the priests, and their brains spilled out on the tables of all those who were against Constantine's new form of Christianity. And then, after they killed half of the priests, almost half of the priests, he said, we're going to vote again. So now you understand what the second vote was like. Those who were...
I believe.
I believe, okay. So that was the sway, and that's the new face of Christianity. Okay? So now, the Roman Empire is going to embrace Christianity. The new Christianity. And now we have Roman Catholicism. And that's the birth of the Roman Catholic Church. So, people need to see how, it eventually, how it came into play, then some of the first bishops and popes there were, there were some blacks involved in there. You had Saint Maurice, and you had some of these other people who played, dynamic parts, who were Africans, who were being used by them. In 380, Theodosius the First proclaims Christianity as the sole religion of the Roman Empire. So that's 380. So this is now about 50 years after Rome has accepted Christianity. See, they accepted it first, but they didn't make it the official religion. It was the seat of the Roman Catholic Church, but it wasn't the total official. By 380, they made it the official religion of the Roman Empire. So that means now, every place the Romans conquered, they were going to shove Christianity down your throat. Before, they weren't doing that. Before, when the Romans conquered you, they just wanted to steal everything of value you had. So the shift changes here. We're going to not only steal everything you have of value, but now we're going to shove this down your throat and leave some priests here behind to make sure you follow this. So not only do you have to give us all your wealth, now we want your soul too. So you can see this big change.
Absolutely.
By 400, the Western Roman Empire moves its capital to Milano. From Milano to Ravenna. And then I'm not going to go into great details, but at this point, the Roman Empire is every other day there's a new emperor. No emperor almost lasts more than 3 to 5 years. They're killed by members. And let me say this: more Roman emperors were killed by members of their army than by any foreigners. So this constant change of Roman emperors and heads was power plays inside of the society. You remember, the Romans are they're the annex of all these hodgepodge of people they've been killing it all along, right? Now, they tried to keep a succession of leaders in a family that were attached to the so-called, aristocratic family, And so, But then, who are these people? They're just the Macedonians, the Greeks, and the later. And so it's just one murder after another, all the way through. Nobody's like voted in out of confidence and stuff like that. No, you get killed. Nobody like lives to an old age as an emperor of Rome. You know.
No, you were saying that they had in 10 years how many emperors?
13 emperors in 10 years at one time doing the thing. So you need to be real clear that I guess that wasn't even a good title to have at one point. You looking over your shoulder, right? And your sons. I mean, and a lot of them were done by like your son killing the father. The father killed all his children to make sure none of them want to get killing their wives, and I mean it was so it was real in play. So the Roman Empire, much of its undoing was its lack of values and greed within itself. It was like the monster from inside allowed the monsters from the outside to come in and sack them. So the constant power play of who's going to be the next, who's going to rule. I'm going to tax the people till they bleeding to death and they can't, like that, So there was always internal strife. So you kept the people unhappy because you bleeding them. You got everybody on the outside wanting to get you because you spent your whole life conquering all of them. So they can't wait to get revenge. So they're looking for any weakness, So it was just a matter of time before the empire would fall, and then this allows Persia and a couple other places to regain and get some strength, So the first time we have this big, like for example, in 636, this is before the Arabs come into Egypt in 640. In 636, the Arabs invade Syria and Palestine and are to conquer them.
Now the Arabs are coming out of
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Okay.
And they've conquered by this time the Turks in the Ottawa and annexed them and converted it into Muslims. So the Muslims are the Turkish Empire, the Ottawa Empire, when they are able to defeat them, that's the rise of Islam. The rise of Islam is totally military power. Once they are able to defeat or annex the largest Asian power and convert them into I shouldn't say Asia Minor, that area. When they're able to conquer, those people. Well, believe it or not, there's almost as many Muslims in China as there are in the rest of the world.
Yeah, I know.
So, I'm just trying to show you, once that military, came in, I know Islam's supposed to mean religion of peace. There's peace after I put my foot up your butt and converted you to our way of life. Then we can have peace among our brothers, and all those religions, though, anybody who doesn't belong to your club, your private club, you got your religion saying you can kill them. So that's why, spirituality is so powerful today. How we have to embrace spirituality. So any of the religions is bad for African people. Yeah. I'll say that again. Any religion is bad for African people because what it does, sometimes you put your religion before you put your culture and your people. So that means your own people are destroying your own self. So that's what happened with Songhai, Mali and Songhai. They were converted to Islam. And then you had Muslims, African Muslims, killing Africans. And Africans who were not Muslims was open field on them. The sack of Ghana were African Moor Muslims destroying Ghana, weakening it so that it fell. So religion itself was created by the Greeks. And then you had a stronghold. Once that philosophy then it began to spread all around the world, But religion was created by the Europeans and for control. And once they created that monster, it's still out of control today.
You can see it. So when does Rome fall?
Well, Rome falls in the Germanic tribes, the Germanic and Vandal tribes are the ones that actually sack the Roman Empire.
Well, actually, I'm looking at North Africa, but then, I'm looking at Egypt.
Well, 640 is when Egypt was conquered by the Arabs. So,
Okay.
so you had, once the Roman Empire fell, then the Turks and the Ottawa, the Mamelukes, they took control of Egypt.
Okay.
So the Romans, the Europeans didn't have enough power to hold on to that area. So the Asians, under the Turks, the Ottawa Empire, took control of the area that would be northern Africa.
All right, and now they spread all across Libya, Algeria,
Right. Remember this area.
Morocco.
I still got my hand on this area here. So this area, all right, so once the Arabs, the Ottawa Empire is in here, right? Mm-hmm. So once they are converted to Islam, then they sweep down across all throughout the Arabian Peninsula and move into Egypt in 640. Mm-hmm. Once they get into Egypt and they got the power now here, and they convert the Africans here, then these Africans will move along all this belt here. See this belt that was all controlled by the Roman Empire?
Yes.
Well, the Arabs and I shouldn't say just Arabs, but I just say Islam because the majority of these fighters are Moors. They are to conquer all of this northern Africa. So all this area that was Rome, that was first Greece and then Rome, gets converted to Islam. And then say, look, all the way over here. And then in 711, they move across the Iberian Peninsula into Spain. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we're talking about in less than 100 years, Islam will sweep all across northern Africa. Mm-hmm. And even while they're conquering here, they're still spreading other places here. So they're to stay here for what, 700 years, from 711 to 1492. Mm-hmm. And I need to say, when they came in and conquered Europe here, it wasn't like the Islamic army came in and it just was so superior and just defeated them on the battlefield like the Roman soldiers would be. No. The people here were first of all, they were dirt poor. They didn't have no food. Wasn't hardly any trade. Europe was at its all-time low. They were devastated from the Crusades. So Europe is cash poor, people poor, food poor. So when the Muslims come in, they ain't got too much opposition. The people are almost cheering as the Moors are traveling through the streets. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people think that we just came in like the Cossacks and just start killing up people, and that's how we conquered. There was actually very little fighting in the Moors' conquest of Spain. Just little upheavals, here and there. But it was basically the people kind of like welcomed them almost. Mm-hmm. Because anything was better than what they were getting in Europe.
Mm-hmm. And these Moors had knowledge and the technology of Egypt because they were
right. So, right, they were Egyptians, and I need to really make that clear. When you just had the Moors in Asia, there were no great Sufi writings. Let me say this: when they came in and sacked Egypt, there was no Quran. Did you hear me? Mm-hmm. There was no Quran. There is no ancient Arabic writings. The ancient Arab architecture. No, this is going to be annexed and developed after they conquer Egypt in 640. They sacked the library at Alexandria and they convert all of that stuff. They gave the priests an ultimatum. You either join Amun-Ra today or you follow Islam. So a lot of Africans joined Amun-Ra and died, and others got converted. So the Sufi was birthed then. That's the Arab scholar. And so stuff got converted. So algebra, that was done in Kemet. But algebra is an Arabic name. Because the Arabs introduced algebra to everybody else. Okay, so
But these are
Africans
Africans
who are just converted to Islam, who
Okay.
were the ancient Kemetu, who were the Egyptians.
So they are now Moors
They are now Moors
under
under Islam.
Who have very clear.
Very. I want to be you clear,
Yeah.
right? And so now the great architectural, the great writings, and then much later the Quran will be developed. And all the Quran does is just the Quran takes all the books, for example, the Old Testament. The Quran takes all the books of the Old Testament. All the prophets of the Old Testament are part of Islam. So they take Moses and all of that as part of Islam. It's just that the New Testament, the Prophet Muhammad is supposed to be the last of the prophets, and so they're coming to where they say Christianity got corrupt. They're coming to straighten it out. You know, but it's just I know Muslims don't want to hear this, but the seat of power of Islam and Judaism and Christianity is all in the same place, under the hands of Europeans.
Yeah.
So Europeans control the seat of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity.
That's right.
So they need to know. All of them are taking the orders from the same group.
Explain that a little.
No, I don't want to go to great, right
All
now. But I'm just,
It's not a problem.
people need to know that it's a facade of the division between Islam, Christianity, and Jews. War represents big business. The power structure needs them fighting among each other. That's good economic business.
And the Jews wrote all of the books, the Christian Bible, the Quran, and their own book.
Yes.
It's all under the control of the Jews. Even though,
Yeah.
it's like you said.
Right.
and we
But
don't have
I
to
need
worry.
you to understand, the original writers were not the European Jews. The European Jews inherited that.
Yes. Right.
Okay? And see, they got their real control of spreading their knowledge. See, in the 1200s, the Chinese invented the printing press. The Europeans reinvented it. I don't know if you can reinvent something in 1400s. So 1474, 1475, the Gutenberg press. That's in Germany again. So the Jews financed that. They didn't invent it. They financed it. And they knew he couldn't pay the interest back. When the Gutenberg press could not pay back the money, then the Jews, barons, took it.
Right.
And now they printed up their Bibles. And the Old and New Testament are now put together for the first time.
Correct.
And under Martin Luther,